Hello, welcome back. I'm Lady Darcy Darkness, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side. How are you all in this wonderful community? I'm going to get the disclaimer out the way, and then we are going to get into this. Yes, we are. We are full of so much adult content that some of you may think this isn't necessary, and some of you think this is needed. If you are one of those people, then thanks for checking us out, but I'll say this only once. If you can't stand the heat, then get the fuck out of my kitchen. Now, for everyone else who likes what we have, here, the regular scheduled programming will continue. Shall we get started? Are we ready? So, this is Confessions from the Dark Side presents Hawtt from the Other Side, which is 2025. What can we expect? Let's reflect on 2024 and let's embrace 2025. So, Hawtt from the Other Side, new horror. Are we ready for it? Are we ready to say goodbye to 2024 and what we have had and what shall we expect? What shall we want? What shall we know what's coming? That's the thing. Keep telling us that the kind of things that we're viewing at the cinema doesn't really change, especially in horror, I've noticed. If you fuck with the cycle too early, then you could fuck over the whole genre. If you release things too late and the cycle has already changed, then your movie is forgotten about or your project's forgotten about for many, many years until some random person starts saying, "Oh, have you seen this movie? This movie came out like maybe 5, 6 years ago and no one's really heard of it." And like, it will randomly make like do the rounds and people will be like, "Why the fuck have I not fucking seen this film?" And you've got to be careful. And it's not just in horror, it's in every cycle of movies and TV show and any sort of media. If you are too quick, you can fuck it up. And if you're late to the post, you can fuck it up. You have to hit it bang on right in the middle. And it seems that we've had the kind of same cycle over and over. There's certain types of movies and types of genres that never ever leave. And I think religious horror is just such a wide spectrum that it never goes away because so many things can come under that supernatural umbrella of, yes, I said religious horror is supernatural because when I've watched a few movies, supernatural and religious horror especially, if it favours them, then they'll use a supernatural aspect, but if it doesn't favour them, then they won't, then it's evil. We need to blow things open, we need to pull things apart, and we need to create something different and something that people can say, "Oh my god, this is pivotal to this genre," but we haven't had that yet. Everybody seems to think that they can, but they can't. What do we expect for 2025? Do we at least, so we really have to reflect on the year that we are still in, which is 2024, and what it gave us. What did we love? What did we hate? What surprised us? And what really disappointed us? That's usually what I prefer, the disappointment first. Are you ready for 2025 and what it has ready for us? Is the cycle changing? Are we lost in translation? Let's see if there's a trend about to break through and give us something that we've been waiting for, dragging us into the darkness and keeping us entertained. Will they manage it? That's the thing. Let's dive in. Are we ready, my wonderful Londians? Because I am. 2024. What movies have we had? And what were the loves, hates, and what were you fucking thinking and wasn't expecting that moments of 2024? Let's discuss them here. And let's find out what you have enjoyed, what we want to see, and will we ever see it? The genres we have had this year. Let's see. Did we get anything that shocked us? Or we felt needed the spotlight, whether this was good or bad? Let's discuss the topics of the movies we reviewed in horror, sci-fi, and fantasy, and see what we really enjoyed on our screen. In January, so we had Mummy Murders, which is a mystery horror movie that came out on the 1st of January. Then we had Night Swim in the 5th, which was a Blumhouse movie. Had such a really cool poster. Simple, but it's giving you kind of don't go in the water feels, and we all remember that from things like Jaws, Deep Blue Sea, anything like that. Also Lake Placid, things like that, just not making you want to go into the water. Again, it's a kind of fantasy horror, the way the story is actually described and everything like that. Again, it's more of a lore type, superstitious event surrounding this pool. So again, we do like fantasy and horror, and I enjoyed the film. It's weird because Blumhouse has had so many different movies this year and so many things that weren't really good for them because obviously they haven't been Blumhouse on their own. It's been Blumhouse and other production companies, and that tends to fuck them over. So we also had a movie in January called, oh, it was out on the 18th of January, called The Unsettling, and it's about trauma. So it's like psychological trauma. This movie was the way psychological thrillers are, or psychological horror is, it makes you think, which when a movie that makes you think, especially things that may have happened or more believable things that happened than things that cause jump scares and nightmares, our own brains can create that all on its own. So that again is crazy. So I always say matters of the mind are always like crazy because your mind can create images and thoughts and sounds and everything like that, especially if it's triggered by something. So it's much more believable and much more scarier real life is. So on the 26th of January, we had a movie called The Seeding, which apparently I have not seen. It's a remake. We've had remakes, psychological horror, trauma, and mystery lore. So, like the seeding, like I said, it's a Japanese movie. Originally, it was a Japanese movie and was remade. And as you can imagine, remakes of Asian cinema are never good in Hollywood. They aren't, and it doesn't matter if they try and Hollywood it or Hollywood it. These movies, if you haven't seen them in their native language and their native originality, basically, Asian cinema, again, much more elaborate, more visual aspects that actually you can still remember. And I've spoke about a movie called Ichi the Killer that still stays with me, and I seen it when I was, I think, 17, and it was an 18 movie, and I rented it, and I was like, well, it was technically illegal that you let me fucking rent it in the first place without fucking IDing me, but there's things in this movie that when I was 17 seeing were like, oh my god, what the fuck? You'll never be the same again. But it sticks with you a few of the scenes. And again, if they were to remake that movie, which they never have, I don't think they would get away with it, or they could get away with it. This movie is again, it seems to be about, it's a woman who has been trapped with her captors, basically, which, and they're stranded on a desert, basically, with no way out. Again, another movie that apparently has a less traditional narrative. It's still come under psychological, like horror, and I would say it had a lot of thriller. Well, the way it's described, it's so basically January remakes are a psychological horror trauma with mystery and lore, with a remake in there or two. So that was January. So we started off. That's what we started with, and then February we have Lisa Frankenstein on the 9th. Now, I didn't want to see this movie. I do like the actress Catherine Newton. She's been in lots of things. She was also in Abigail, which was out this year as well. And she's a actress who's been in many, many different things. I know her. Don't judge me from the Carrie Diaries. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm a girl and I like Sex and the City. And I did watch the prequel to it, even though it was boring and more teeny than anything else. But I still watched it because I wanted to see what it was like. She was in Supernatural as well, which again, Supernatural is technically under horror and fantasy. And I really like her as an actress. But Lisa Frankenstein comes under comedy, romance, and horror. And that was just a massive turn off for me. The posters alone just were like, it was like they tried to make Cole Sprouse look like a cross between Sweeney Todd and Edward Scissorhands and a wee bit of Ichabod Crane from Sleepy Hollow. So they made him really, really like Tim Burton. And then she kind of like was stuck in the, it felt like the 80s, like she was playing Carrie, but if Carrie was kind of alternative, like a teen kid, like kind of emo type thing, it was not great. And in horror, I don't think romantic comedy really needs to be in there either. So I'm not, that is just a complete turn off in horror for me. I wouldn't have classed it as comedy horror, which makes no sense. Putting all these fucking stupid fucking titles or genres makes no fucking sense. So I was just like, no. I think I got through like 5 minutes and I was just like, you need to fucking get this off now. So definitely not. Then there's Out of Darkness that was out on the 9th of February, which again, it's a horror thriller. Right, so this movie is the story of people trespassing on unknown territory, basically not knowing what they're up against. And it ends up being, so we've got cannibals. So this is a horror thriller. So there we go. Horror thriller about cannibals. And who doesn't love some cannibals? Kind of reminds me of Cannibal Holocaust. So we didn't have much out in February, it seems. We had a horror comedy, a horror thriller about cannibals. Now, I'd rather the cannibals ate Lisa Frankenstein. That would probably be a much more believable story plot, that the cannibals got sick and tired of her shite, so they just ate her to shut her the fuck up. I'd watch that horror film. What do you think? Make comments below. Would you rather watch Lisa Frankenstein get eat by cannibals to shut her the fuck up? So in March, we had T Blockers, which came out on the 5th of March, and it's an Australian movie. I absolutely hate using that term, but hey, they call it I don't even want to call it what it's going to call it. It's basically horror. That's all it says. T Blockers, horror. I haven't seen it. So we've just had. So in March, we start off with bog standard horror. Ooh, nothing else. T Blockers seems to be like a small released movie, and it's an Australian one, and I haven't seen it, but I've put it on my list. You'll Never Find Me released in June 2023, which means it usually has been to small like, film festivals and stuff, but it was released on the 7th of March, and it's called You'll Never Find Me, and it was on Shudder. It is a horror thriller, which we seem to have had a lot of, which a lot of the time you can't really have a horror movie without thriller, to be fair. And it was a low budget movie. But just because the budget is low doesn't mean the movie is shit or the story is shit, because again, we've had that from Blumhouse with movies like There's Something Wrong with the Children. That had a tiny ass budget. Terrifier had a tiny ass budget, and look, the third movie managed to make $88 million, and it had a tiny as fuck budget. And the director and the creator had to make it himself because no one wanted to fucking touch it for some reason. And they're probably kicking themselves now. Imaginary was out in the 8th of March. And again, I know that it was Blumhouse again. Blumhouse seemed to have a really good year this year, and they seem to be just every year they get better, to be fair. And this was like a jump scare movie, and it was just horror. Night Shift was out in the 8th of March as well. And again, it took influences of Psycho and Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. You can tell because there's a girl with an axe, basically, is the main picture. Night Shift, there's been a few horror movies called Night Shift. And there's also a Stephen King one that's called Night Shift as well, I do believe. It's kind of more of a psychological thriller. Yeah, there was one out. Again, Night Shift was another movie that was. It was a slasher horror thriller, and it was out in 2023 originally. So again, small movie, small budget, and then was released on Shudder in March, it seems. And again, it has quite a few people that we'd recognise, like Phoebe Tonkin, who was in The Vampire Diaries, who was in the originals. She was also in, I think, one of the Australian soaps as well, because she is, in fact, Australian. And she was in Legacies, apparently, but she's a really good actress. Her name was Hayley. She was the werewolf. You've got Lamorne Morris, again, he was in New Girl. There's lots of people that are in it, but again, it's just one of those movies. But it comes under slasher horror thriller, so that was our first sign of slasher, which wasn't the only slasher we've had in 2024. We had Adriel, which was out in the 11th, and again came from theaters. Samara Weaving, basically, who's in the movie, has been in movies like The Babysitter, Scream, and Ash vs. the Evil Dead. This is a thriller, action, horror thriller, basically. So instead of basing itself around jump scares, it was more about, thinking and the visuals more than anything else. But as I said, you do not need to have a horror movie with jump scares. You don't need to create jump scares to scare your audience. You want to captivate your audience, whether you're scaring them or making them think. Immaculate. Now, I reviewed Immaculate. This is when I started to do reviews more, and Immaculate was one of the earlier ones this year that had Sydney Sweeney. Immaculate was a movie that she had actually signed up to do like 10 years before or something like that. It was like when she was 17, and she's actually I think a producer on this, and she did minor directing and stuff. I enjoyed Immaculate, but there's a few movies that has been similar, and we already had two movies like this already. We had The First Omen, which came out, I think, later on as a prequel to the Omen franchise, but Immaculate was, again, something similar, but again, showing you how the Catholic Church had a different faction that was trying to bring the Antichrist here, and they had been experimenting on women that were part of the local area that have maybe fallen on hard times with their children, also women who may have had questionable lives, should I say, that they would have put away. Again, not being subservient, not doing as you're told, a bunch of things, not marrying, not having children. They put them in this like kind of convent type place, but they had like an orphanage and then a hospital and stuff like that. And there was women who were nuns who were used to carry the Antichrist, basically, and they were kept there because they were tormented. So a lot of them obviously didn't carry their children to term or their babies passed away because obviously the deformities and things like that they've been genetically modifying DNA so they could bring the Antichrist here. So this was a religious horror, which was like the first kind of the year. Also the devil and Catholicism, and how not to trust everything that you see. And this movie actually, I had never really been a fan of Sydney Sweeney. In this movie, they over sexualize a nun, and I went to school with nuns and they did not look like Sydney Sweeney, that's for sure. It was a good movie, and for me, this was probably one of the better horror movies that started the year off. I don't think we'd had very great ones that were kind of out. January, we had like one or two that were good, and again, February was a bust, and March seemed to be a bust until we've seen things like Immaculate. Late Night with the Devil was, again, everybody knows that that's one of my favourite movies this year, if not my favourite. I think David Dasmalkian played an amazing role. He's such an amazing actor, very, very talented, kind of indie actor because he hasn't had big, massive roles up until really now. He's kind of like the side character or the one that kind of disappears into the group. But for me, he doesn't. I always remember him from The Dark Knight, and I always remember him from The Suicide Squad as well. But this movie, oh wow, I just thought he really came into his own here, and I think people really, really seen him for the talent that he is. I feel like he's a wasted talent because he doesn't get roles like this to show what he can do. And this movie was based on a guy who pretty much gave up everything to be the best talk show host ever. It was 86 minutes. It was like a found footage film, found footage in possession, basically. So it was, what will you do for fame? What would you do for fame? And it shows you the deep turmoil of a man who has lost everything. He'd gained everything. He had everything. He gained everything, and he lost everything. And it's about a spider. It's basically like a web of the lies protecting him, and then everything unraveling when he realizes that he lost the one thing that he loved the most. That was his wife, and he literally has a massive breakdown, and you're thinking, what's in his head, what's actually happening, and what is the real found footage. It's fucked up. I fucking enjoyed it, and I tell everybody to fucking watch it because it's fucked up and it's amazing. Then we have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which again is another part of the franchise. The last movie wasn't really that great. I liked the reboot of the Ghostbusters. It was a kick to the feels, especially because the actor that plays Egon had passed away, and his daughter didn't understand him. He didn't understand his daughter, and she got to say goodbye to her dad as a ghost. It was really, really sad. And then they brought out Frozen Empire, which again tied everything together. They were back in they were basically got as many as the original people back in, but they went back to New York, and it did give you feels for the 80s. It really did. There's a lot of things in it it didn't have to be in there, but it was just like showing you how Phoebe's like Egon and she's an outcast, and how they kept playing how outcasts are bad when outcasts, in my opinion, being independent and not being like anybody else and being an individual isn't a bad fucking thing. And they kind of portray it as that she's easily to be manipulated because she has no fucking friends, which is bullshit. But hey, I enjoyed it. Supernatural action and comedy. So I'm just writing all these down as I go because there was a lot. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. Again, this is part of the Pooniverse. Yes, you heard it. The Pooniverse, or as I like to call it, the Vaginaverse, because Poon means vagina, and Pooh is Winnie the Pooh. Universe is from universe. So they've put it together and made Pooniverse. Whoever thought that was a good idea and didn't think it was going to sound pornographic is a fucking dumbass. But the Vaginaverse, basically, this is the second part, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. There's actually going to be a third one, and in 2025 they're blowing this open. So how basically Christopher Robin should be, how Winnie the Pooh isn't this like innocent character. If a child who's grown up is seeing him, still there is a problem between said human and, his brain. So sequel, it's not rated as much apparently. It just says not rated horror thriller. Fish again. Mickey's Mousetrap again, 2024, as part of this universe. Basically, this is basically the cheap version, in my honesty, of Steamboat Willie that's coming out. But you never know because, well, it's Rob Zombie and he fucks everything up. Don't fucking come for me. I like the guy as a musician, but his take on horror is shit. And if you want to fucking come for me in the comments, I really don't give a fuck. Everybody knows how I feel about Rob Zombie and his terrible adaptations. So that was us in March. So we have April, The First Omen, like I said, very, very similar to Immaculate, but it's part of the original Omen franchise. They kind of opened up doors and it filled in some plot holes. It opened some doors and created some new plot holes that could have actually get a sequel, or maybe another, not a sequel to this movie, yes, but kind of a different storyline. If you haven't seen the movie, it's like, will I spoil it? Probably. They could easily do it from another point of view because Damien was a twin. We wanted basically to put Damien into a family in the Western world so that he could use his sway for their narrative, but he was a twin and they were going to kill the twin basically, as you do, but she is female. But they always think that the boy is going to be more evil when it's actually shown in many, many movies that women, and in real life, by the way, that women can be vindictive and women can actually be kind of the more stronger, more evil entity. We think differently and our ways of torture and evil are different compared to a man's perspective. So they could really go down that route, or they could maybe, as I always thought, that maybe they would use the female twin or the female that's part of his family and the mother to actually try and take down Damien, because that could be another way. But hey, they might not do that. They might just not do anything. They might just leave it as is. But it came out on the 5th of April and it is basically just labelled as horror. Whereas I would call it a religious horror, supernatural horror. So horror, supernatural, and religious, because people don't always class like the religious aspect of the movies. They just think, oh, whatever, horror, that's it. But there is so many different aspects in religious horror. Like, because you've got exorcisms, possessions, you get supernatural, everything comes under this. And the religion itself, cults and things like that. So, yeah, there's like so many. Sting, which was out on the 12th of April, your biggest fear just get bigger. That sounds, well, it sounds a wee bit graphic, wouldn't you say? It just gets bigger. It's when it says your biggest fear just got bigger. How about your biggest thrill just got bigger? Who knows? Again, about a spider and a girl and a spider. Wow. Yeah, the girl and the spider, and then the spider goes awry, and then it goes mental. So it's basically from what I can feel, it's like Charlotte's Web on roids. What the fuck? In Flames, again, this seems to be again, it's a Pakistani horror movie, but again, Asian cinema from all over the world. There's been so many different types of horror movies, and again, from that area, that region in the world, they do a lot of things based on lore and the stories, the folklore that they would have been brought up with, which again, we don't always hear about or we may not know about. So it's really, really good because again, there's usually hidden messages like actions have consequences, and you reap what you sow in a lot of these horror movies from that part of the world. So that's pretty much what this is about. I have not seen it, but the images look, well, interesting, put it that way. Sorry, that movie actually was a horror and a thriller. So again, the same type of thing. Abigail, now I fucking love this. Now the cover, like the promotion for this was amazing because all it showed was a little girl and as a ballerina. Now, all little girls, all children in movies are evil. Yes, they are. There's never ever a time where the child is innocent. Never. Ever. They either do something in the movie where they should be killed off, or they actually are the reason why the movie is as is. And Abigail is no different. Abigail is based around Dracula's daughter. Basically, there's a little girl in a big mansion of a house, and these people think, you know what? It's a good idea. It's a derelict old mansion, and there's like hardly any security. What part of that doesn't set off alarm bells in your head that there's a girl who lives in that house with one kind of maybe two, she's got a driver and like a guard. That's it. What they idiots that apparently are smart and they can do all these fucking things and are professional thieves don't actually realise that a wee girl only has two people there with her and they don't need any big guys or big security details or anything like that. Apparently her father is a very, very powerful man in the underworld. Like not even the underworld of supernatural, it's the underworld of crime. And they thought it was a good idea to fucking steal. Really, even if it wasn't a supernatural entity, a vampire, as it were. They heard stories about the things that he does when you double cross him or when you do something to piss him off, yet they still did it. They thought kidnapping his daughter was going to be a good idea. And as you can imagine, they find out that when they walk into the house, minimal security because they don't need it because the wee girl is a vampire and she is. They don't actually talk about how old she is, but a vampire of any sort, especially one that they again don't need lots of power, don't need lots of muscle. They get locked in and they seem to think that it's to protect them. No, no, no. It's to keep whatever's inside from getting out. Because she's a prisoner in her own home, basically. She gets to do her own things, but she is literally always looking for attention. And always. And again, I absolutely loved it. It was brutal in some of the scenes, and that's one of the reasons why I loved it, because it was really, really bloody. So we have Night of the Harvest, which was out on the 19th of April, but it was only available in certain states in America for some reason, which usually means it's a smaller movie. It seems to be a coming of age with girls going to a haunted place and folklore, so more folkloric shit again, folklore and mystery. So what else do we have? We have Humane, which was out on the 26th of April, based on eerie ghosts and serial killers apparently. What's more terrifying? Real life, but hey. It's an actions have consequences type thing as well. So let's see what May gives us. May. Tarot. Again. It was another Tarot as a sequel. Again, supernatural horror with hidden agendas of actions have consequences again. Lessons. Life lessons. Which again can be psychological as well. I saw the TV glow now. I didn't want to fucking see this movie. It looked shit. It looked shit. The advert looked shit as well. It was like tweeny woke. I'm sorry, but it was. It just made no sense. Supernatural with basically a fine line between reality and fiction. It got positive reviews from critics because critics don't want to fucking say anything against any of that, so therefore they give it a good review, and then actual horror fans watch it and go, what the fuck is this? So this again was more of a sci-fi horror tween-pish. The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, I've discussed plenty with people who actually like the Strangers movies. And the original Strangers movies is actually based on the events of Charles Manson and that night where he killed the pregnant actress and people in the house. It was kind of, the story was based around that originally, but then again, it goes off on a tangent. I'm not a big fan of these movies because I just don't think they're particularly written well, and I don't think it needed as many as there was. And again, it's a slasher movie, and again, I still don't think they're particularly good. So creating like another movie part of the franchise, is again, it was a hit or a miss. It's just based under horror as well, which again, don't you just love it when horror gets horror? In a violent nature, this movie was supposed to be like one of the scariest movies ever. Not even for the year, they were trying to say it was like the next like scariest like movie. And I was waiting for ages because it was out in it debuted at the Sundance Film Festival, and people were praising it. It was getting praised way before it was even being shown there because of just the nature of the story, basically. And then it's a shudder movie, basically. It was a mask as well, so I was just like, what the fuck? Because it really gave me kind of cosplay, role play type in the woods, live action, like LARPing, basically. That's what it gave me, LARPing with basically extras. So it was a lot of violence, but violence in horror, you're going to get it, whether it's violence of your visual violence that basically makes your mind work, or actual physical violence where you're like, did that really just happen? Or wow, that did happen, didn't it? That's usually me, wow, that just happened, and laughing about it. So we have June 2024. So on the 5th of June, there was a movie called Under Paris. Creature feature. We don't get many creature features anymore. We really, really don't. Even though technically Night Swim was similar, but it was just the pool really more than anything, rather than the entity and all the lore that went behind it. So we had a creature feature, and then we had a movie called The Watchers on the 7th of June, it was M. Night's daughter. It's a fantasy horror, so there we go. This was more about her being noticed for her works, not the fact that she has a famous father, which was pushed more than the actual movie itself, as I can remember. It's another creature feature technically as well. Strangers coming together and having to work together to basically get back home. Wild Eyed and Wicked, and again, it's a creature feature horror. Wild Eyed and Wicked, the 11th of June. Again, fantasy horror. It has phobias and things like that, which freak me the fuck out more than anything because everybody has some sort of phobia that fucks with them. So, yep, another fantasy horror. Latency, out in the 14th of June. Action thriller. And again, thriller gets mistaken for horror quite a lot as well, and it gets put into the same kind of genre. But this is like based on like agoraphobia, which again is small spaces, and a lot of people tend to get it after like big events like deaths, grief, PTSD, or any sort of abhorrent event that's happened to them. Doesn't even have to be physically; it can be emotionally, and being in your safe spot means you don't have to be affected by it. Speaking to someone who had it partially through life, and pretty much right now, it can be soul destroying. It can take over your life, and also it can make leaving your safe place. It can make you basically live in a horror story when you can't leave the house with the fear that things are not as they are if you leave. So that's like again a psychological aspect of a lot of horror movies. Tiger Stripes. Again, it's from a new director, and it's based off a Malaysian urban legend and legends. And again, I love urban legends. Urban legends. Again, there's two or three movies actually, but the first movie basically was the best, as it usually was, and the way it explored urban legends. Everybody is from a place where the urban legends is different, and sometimes there's the same story, but it's different in different areas, different places, different cities, different countries, but has a similar narrative of actions have consequences and what you sow basically, and that's what seems to be with this movie too. So there is a movie called The Exorcism, which I'm actually doing a review for. It's actually Russell Crowe, and the movie again is it's like a movie within a movie because it's a remake of The Exorcist and got aspects of what if there was an entity already waiting to pretty much possess more people. We don't know where it came from and who brought it here and who was originally possessed. It's basically an entity jumping from the lead actors that are on it, and Russell Crowe is playing the OG priest from the original Exorcist movie, and there's a lot of things that don't need to be in it, as I will discuss. Russell fucking Crowe has been typecasted now as being sexy priest extraordinaire, whether he's playing a priest on a movie or he is reliving a priest's real life job like he does in The Pope's Exorcist. And this is a religious horror movie with horror. You know when you watch a movie like exorcism movie where it's literally them saying horrible nasty things, that's pretty much how they base this. A Quiet Place. Now, again, I fucking hate those movies. They make no fucking sense, and bringing out a prequel so late. See, when they released the original movie, A Quiet Place, a prequel should have came out after that. It should have came out to explain why they came, how they came, and how they learned about them, and why the idea of, again, in the first movie where she's pregnant and she has a fucking baby, babies fucking cry, what the fuck? And they are triggered by noise. So yeah, I hate these movies. I don't think they are particularly great, and I don't understand why people fucking go to see them. Sorry, my rant about that is never over. July, we had Maxine, which was the third part of the X or Peril, whatever you want to call it, universe, and it has got Mia Goth in it. The franchise has made so much fucking money, and it's like kind of tying all both stories, Peril and X, together. If you've seen them, that's what it felt for me. But I think Mia was definitely supposed to play this role, and she plays it incredibly well. So I did enjoy that. Dead Whisper on the 5th of July, and again, Maxine. What was Maxine actually? What would Maxine be under? Maxine is under serial killer, slasher, crime, and horror. So you've got, like I said, Dead Whisper, seems to be horror and supernatural. And again, it's based on a ghost story, it seems, in England, and about death and people depressed and people coping. And again, why do they always make it so depressing in England? When you lose someone you care about, it's depressing no matter what fucking country you're in. Lumina. 12th of July, again, it's a sci-fi horror movie. Plenty of these. Also, it's got like a tutti frutti love story in it, and also some conspiracy. Don't we just love conspiracy? I love conspiracy. Conspiracy is like the bread and butter of us weirdos. Survival in a post-apocalyptic world? Never. Longlegs. Now, this is a movie I was so fucking looking forward to because I absolutely love the actress who's in this movie. She's so good. And people hated it and they totally like fucking dragged her. They were trying to make a more analytical Clary Starling, and they made her look like kind of wooden, I would say. They kind of made her sound more autistic than analytical than anything else. But I was getting into the frame of mind of someone who's actually been through her own PTSD, and it's been masked because her mother has, it feels like she's been either brainwashed or hypnotized in such a way that she can't remember a killer being in her house, a doll maker who literally created dolls who look similar to her, how her mother went through like fucking all this trauma and shit It's kind of slow and makes no sense and choppy. Nicolas Cage was amazing, and his really portrayal of the killer, even though technically he isn't the killer, he's just part of it, the story, and part of the whole. He's part of the killings, but he doesn't do the actual killings. The only killing he does is himself. He is a creepy guy who goes after little girls, which brings up red flags of a lot of things that we can't say because you'll literally get slaughtered for actually talking about it. It was based around kind of Silence of the Lambs and kind of failed. Failed big time because it didn't have, it really did not have the same feel or the same presence as the Silence of the Lambs movie. Well, there's Silence of the Lambs, or as people forget, Silence of the Lambs is actually a remake of Manhunt, which is a movie that was out years way before with Brian Cox, and it was based on Hannibal Lecter. This wasn't about Hannibal Lecter. They made it about the devil. Again, they made it about the devil. So they took out Hannibal Lecter and replaced him with Satanism, basically. Which I always hate the fact that when they bring in again religion and they bring in like a cult type thing, that they bring in Satanism, and I'm just like, really? Or a demon that's obviously working for Satan, and it's just like, seriously, is that it? So it was all over the fucking place and kind of choppy, and I was really excited about it, and it fell flat, which sucks balls. But yeah, it was not really that great. It really was not. So in August, we had Trap, which was an M. Night movie that had Josh Hartnett in it. And again, watched it recently. Was expecting so much more. It's based on a serial killer that they're trying to catch, and they're kind of at a concert, and it's like supposed to be Taylor Swift or someone like Taylor Swift, and they're literally trying to get the butcher, and he's there with his daughter, so they think that, you know, they are going to be able to outsmart a killer that they've not been able to find. But why would they know he was at the concert and stuff was beyond me. It was weird. The plan was to catch him at a Taylor Swift concert, basically. So people were expecting a lot more from M. Night because these movies are not only a good story, but he tends to make things visually, aesthetically perfect. And you, if you're anything like me, where you hyperfixate on little things, his movies you seem to, whereas this movie no one did. There was for me there was no hyperfixation on the fluidity of the story and the surroundings like it usually is, like you'd find in Splattering Glass. It was just such a letdown because I love Josh Hartnett. He, again, not been typecasted. He's been in loads of different movies. I followed his career for, like, he was in like Halloween H2O, he was in The Faculty, that was like smaller kind of blockbuster movies, and then he did big blockbuster movies like Black Hawk Down, and he was also in Penny Dreadful. He was in Penny Dreadful, and he was really fucking good in that as well. So he is a really good actor. That movie was just not a good one for him. We had Cuckoo next in the ninth, which again was based on a girl who goes on a holiday with her dad to the German Alps, and someone takes a weird fascination for her sister. And again, it's more of a fight to get away from these weirdos that have become fucking pure obsessed. If you go to a place in the middle of fucking nowhere and people start to become obsessed with members of your family, run the fuck away. Run the fuck away. Seriously, it's never a good sign. It really, really is not. And they are trying to say for Cuckoo, it's mystery, teen horror, and thriller. So, teen horror, serial killer, mystery, and horror. And again, like I said, psychological thriller, crime, The Deliverance. Again, this was on Netflix, and this is based on a true story, and it's got Glenn Close in it. And again, couldn't wait to actually see this because it's similar to The Conjuring in some aspects, but this was actually based on lots of different departments were involved with this family who couldn't explain the shit that they were seeing and couldn't explain the shit that was happening to this family. Obviously over dramatized for Netflix, of course, but apparently it's a movie about a possession, basically, and it was weird. Did I think it was particularly scary? Not really. We had Alien Romulus, and you know how I feel about that movie. It was terrible, but if we didn't put a prequel or some sort of movie into the franchise, it would come out of like copyright, basically, like ownership, and then they would reboot it. And we don't want to see a rebooted classic Alien movie, do we? No, we fucking don't, because holy suck balls. Consumed again is a horror movie, of course, and it's about a monster. And so we're looking at monster horror. It's the way they've described it is a skin stealing monster. It's more like a skin walker, so it's more like a mystery monster creature feature, basically. Creature feature. I just love that term, man. Stream again, wasn't really that impressed by it. It got really good, like it had a really good trailer and everything like that, but it had good pictures as well. But I just was like, meh. It's a slasher horror. Yeah, again, goes on holiday. It's a vacation to die for. But there's 4 deranged killers playing a game with people like The Strangers, like every other movie that has done something similar. We've also, again, things like Last House on the Left was similar to this. Bunch of serial killers do things, abhorrent crimes, and then get their comeuppance with the family realising that they are not who they claim to be. So competing against each other to see who has the best style of murdering the people in the hotel, basically. It came from like makers of the Terrifier and stuff, and that's why people thought, yay, this is going to be great. But again, it just didn't sit well with me, I suppose. I was just like, meh. Strange Darling, out in the 23rd of August, and it was a pointless movie about a woman who had a one night stand and things went awry, and it was just a bunch of murder, basically. Then we have Afraid, which was a technological horror movie from Blumhouse, and again, not good, no good. It was terrible, and I was glad that it didn't last that long. I expected more from John Cho being in it, to be fair. On August, also, we had The Crow, which was a reboot. And The Crow was supposed to be out in June, by the way, but it was pushed back. Shock horror. Remake. And it was terrible. In September, we have Red Rooms on the 6th, and it's based in a serial killer and urban legend. The breakdown is crazy, the actual amount of stuff that we're seeing. I haven't seen that movie, Red Rooms, but I've seen the trailer. Hereafter movie is basically about a girl who ends up not, she manages to escape death, yet she keeps finding her way back to basically death or as close to death as possible, and her mother notices her daughter has come back and she's not the same. You know, there's always that thing of people who they kind of do it in flatliners, like where people who have been unconscious or dead for like minutes that have never come back the same because they go to another world or they go to the kind of veil basically before they cross over, and some people go to another place, some people go elsewhere, and some people are led down the garden path by an entity usually. Resurrection and going to the place of unknown has already been, like I said, Flatliners is one of the big ones talking about resurrection and going back. And again, kind of like Final Destination as well, because all those people were supposed to die and then they keep seeing their death and then it's like preventing their death and all that carry on. Kind of dabbles in, it gives me a kind of religious aspect because we don't know about the unknown, and these type of films tend to do that. A catastrophic accident causes someone to come back not the same, and the parent notices it, and her daughter's never the same, and she just seems to be, there's a dark energy basically of why she keeps going back rather than, kind of moving forward. So it's like her mother's thinking, is she my daughter? We see that. Speak No Evil, which was out on Friday the 13th of September with the amazing and Scottish national treasure that is, to Scotland, Mr. James McAvoy. Yes, he was in a remake of a Danish movie called Speak No Evil. It was based on a book, And the book is sinister. The original movie is quite sinister, but a lot of people remember how captivating James McAvoy and how believable he was as a nut job. Yes, from the man from Split. He can play so many people. He's like a fucking chameleon. We love him. And in this movie, he literally made me want to peel my own skin off, take a hot shower, and forget about literally life as we know it. And he made me feel so uncomfortable that I had to pause the movie quite a lot because I was like, really, James? Really, 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 really? Why are you doing this? My brain is fucked up enough. But he was brilliant, and that was like your psychological horror. When you go on holiday, people, do not befriend people. Be that fucking cynical tourist that would rather be alone than end up being Buffalo Billed. Or is there anything worse than being Buffalo Billed? Who the fuck knows? James McAvoy fucking special K'ing you and stealing your money and stealing your wine? I don't know what the fuck's worse. We have The Substance, and again, September had a couple of really good movies, and The Substance was amazing. I actually have introduced this movie to so many people because it's one of those ones where you have to fucking watch it to not only appreciate the gore and the horror and the story, it's the fact is, what would you do, especially in Hollywood, what would you do to stay young and stay in the top of your game and stay in the top of your career for the rest of your life? Would you take The Substance? Would you take and follow the rules of The Substance and the effects if you don't do as you're told with The Substance? Both actresses in this movie, there was again other people in it. Dennis Quaid was in it as well, and he played his character as a complete dick really fucking well. I was so kicking and stuff, and you just fucking hated him and you wanted to punch him in the fucking face, so you just shut the fuck up. But he basically was acting like any sort of agent or head of TV or head of a production company would be, especially when, you know, they're trying to find a new face and revamp everything and everything like that. And obviously moving forward, because we're in a digital age, they kind of try to make it old, like a kind of old-fashioned day stuck in time, because we're trying to focus on the fact that your time in Hollywood and in the spotlight is a short time, and if you don't grasp it in your prime, then you never will. And the sad fact is, we live in a world like that where perfection is what they see. It's not what's in the inside, and what you're actually capable of is what your aesthetics are actually going to give and how much money they're going to make. And that's what the Substance is about. And it is absolutely glorifically wonderful. It's a masterpiece. I absolutely love the director and the writer. She's awesome. And she got a lot of shit and backlash for this movie. And I don't understand why. I said, because in Hollywood, think of all the people who have fell down the cracks of Hollywood because they haven't made it, or they just haven't had what it took, or they've just not found their movie in time or their genre or what their thing is, and you basically end up fucked. If you don't get a name for yourself, then it's too late. In a blink, it's too late. And they had Demi Moore, who's a very, very talented actress from the 80s, 90s, and even present day. And her actual personal journey of going through plastic surgery and changing herself to fit a narrative in Hollywood, and also for the way people see her and how the world is objectifies not just women, but I mean, it happens to the men as well. Women in Hollywood, especially, if you, again, you hit a certain age, then you basically don't get the big roles, the fabulous roles. You get the kind of more, you play the mother, you play the grandmother even, or you play something else that's not in your wheelhouse, because you have to take the work when you get it, especially if you haven't made it. And her journey and how she has been for the past few decades, when she started to get plastic surgery, then they picked the perfect person for this role. Not only is she a beautiful, talented actress, she has had her own experience in that world, and I really, really feel that they fucking picked well for this. And I want to see her in more roles like this, because she was fucking amazing, and you never ever seen her like this before. And that came under, again, body horror. That was a big body horror thing, and it freaked people out. And again, if you're not into body horror, then the poster for that movie showed you the brutality of what someone would go through to stay young and beautiful and successful. We have Winter Island, which was out on the 24th. It was on demand, and it's a Polish horror movie. It's a classic ghost story, apparently. So that's another one. Apartment 7A is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, and a good cast. didn't have lots of big people, but the people who were actually playing the important roles in the movie, which was Dan and Vice, and shining a light over how Rosemary's Baby came to be and the actual agenda of the neighbours, where that came from, and how they got to Rosemary, basically, in the story, and how they perfected things, basically, or they tried to perfect things. They tried to find the perfect mother of the Antichrist to bring forth a new generation. It was a good story, but it was predictable what was going to happen, obviously, and it kind of showed you, it kind of lifted the curtain to show you all is not what it seems. How fame and money and success doesn't always mean that you get what you want. There is that. So it was a prequel we got. And again, it's opened a couple more doors, but will they reboot it? That's the thing. Yeah, again, there was a few other smaller movies like Bagman, again, a smaller movie, and that just had some really weird, again, obscurities. It was body horror again, and kind of mostly horror for me. In October, we had Salem's Lot, which was a remake, and it was a movie, and it wasn't a mini series, and HBO did that. Hold Your Breath, which again was a movie that has Sarah Paulson in it, and it was on Hulu. It was a streaming service. It's basically a woman feels that there is a presence. Basically, she felt like the dust and the kind of atmosphere of where they live, it was to do with actions of consequences and how they were going to be judged by a higher power, basically. And she has to take matters into her own hands, basically, because everybody thinks she's went mental. No shit. It's what's inside, and again, that just gives you all sorts of types of things. It was a horror comedy. Again, that would be known as a dark comedy or a black comedy. And again, these things change names to suit the narrative of what is going on at that time. And it was on Netflix as well. Again, I was bored. Very fucking bored. Why does that not surprise you? Caddo Lake, haven't seen this yet, but again, it's based on another kind of, it's the vanishings, the urban legend of a lake, and the guy goes back to basically figure stuff out. Smile 2, again, a sequel to a movie, again, that is getting another sequel because these movies have a simple, basically, story. Nothing really can fuck up in them, and it makes people realise that just because you're smiling doesn't mean that you're in a happy place. You're smiling because it's like the crumbling between her past, her present, her future. The horrors of staying on top of your game, the horrors of the outside world, the horrors within her, everything together, and literally smiling in these movies is showing you that everything is okay, yet you are not okay. Terrifier 3, now we all loved that on the 11th of October, and how amazing Art the Clown was. It was brutal, it was great. I don't understand why there was so much hysteria around it. If you've never seen a fucking Terrifier film, maybe you should watch the first two before you go to the cinema and get butthurt and cry about it online. Art is wonderful, and I don't understand. We all feel like Art sometimes, where although we don't carry out what we want to do, unlike Art, he dishes out what we cannot do, but we're really thinking should be happening that doesn't. And this movie made 88 million. By the way, let that sink in. 88 million for a small budget, simple horror movie. Gore, fabulous gore. It had such wonderful blood spatter moments, and I laughed a lot at this movie, and I was very happy the fact that they made it kind of dark and dank, like it was like the old VHS tapes and stuff. So I do enjoy that they captured that moment, because we have the budget for the original movie was $35,000, and that movie, I think it said $2 million, so it made 88 million. See the companies that didn't want to fucking back this, they must be fucking kicking themselves now, I can assure you. Definitely. We had VHS Beyond as well, and that's again another sequel. Again, we had Your Monster, which again is another movie that was out. Isn't really coming out to this month though in some places. Time Cut. Again, that movie was awful, and again, that was sci-fi teen slasher shit. It was not good. It really was not good. We had that. So for November, we had He Never Left. And again, this movie was out before, but this was it back again. And it's based on an urban legend of a killer. And the killer comes back and is going after a couple that's stuck in a motel. And no one is safe because, again, he's a pale faced killer who basically has been terrorizing the village for decades and randomly disappeared, and now he's back. He never left. Basically in the title is just because he wasn't doing inflicting any killings or any judgments doesn't mean that he wasn't there watching to see if anything else was to happen. So he's like the judge, jury, and executioner. So again, it get slasher feels as well. Heretic was a movie that looking forward to see with Hugh Grant. And again, Hugh Grant is another guy who was typecasted as this gentlemanly guy, and then he had some drama in his real life. And in the 90s and early 2000s, having drama in the newspapers and magazines did better for your career than anything else because you were seen as, like, even if it was bad press, you still got work for it, put it that way. But he's totally turned his life around with his movies, and he's in Heretic. Heretic is basically a guy who is a zealot in his own right, and he seems to capture these two Mormon girls who are basically, as they do, go around and speak to you about religion and all that stuff, brainwashing and all that shit pretty much at your door and annoys you. He invites them in and terror starts basically because he's like, in my kind of mind, you've came to my house and interrupted me, so fuck you. I'm going to make you be subjected to me. So there was that. It was creepy and psychological because that seemed to be the kind of only two movies that were actually there. And December. Well, we had Black Cab as well, which is a Nick Frost movie, and again, that was another movie that was used for, I think it was streaming as well, I believe. So December, what have we had? Nosferatu. That's basically it. Nosferatu. A remake of a movie that's like over 100 years old, and guess who's in it? It's the reboot killer, Mr. Bill Skarsgård. It is being portrayed. It's got Nick Holt in it, man, and he's a really good actor, and he's been in loads of stuff, and he was in Renfield as well, and he's such a good actor. He's been in things since he's been a kid, and he's just again a proper thespian actor who seems to be able to do so many amazing roles and brings characters to life. Why Nosferatu? They keep focusing on this gothic horror and how Bill Skarsgård is going to bring this. No, he failed with it. He failed with The Crow. And now Nosferatu, it's like a triple trifecta. In the past few years, he is going to kill another movie. I would say spare yourself and watch the original, because the original has stood the test of time after 102 years, for fuck's sake. So it's a vampire, paranormal, supernatural movie. And for the full year of horror, we've had remakes, reboots, reimaginings, prequels. We've had a lot of horror, psychological horror, things trying to be funny, a ton of religious and supernatural movies, technological horror as well. We also had Subservience as well in there, and that was in September with Megan Fox, and that was a sci-fi horror. And it seems to be serial killer, slasher, psychological horror, supernatural, with the remakes, reboots, reimaginings, and prequels that we've had. The slasher they keep using slasher in a way that I don't enjoy, because the slasher movies that they're continuously trying to sell us are basically like, it's like Dawson's Creek. Sorry, but I know that's terrible to say that, because Dawson's Creek again was a movie. It was a TV show that kids in the 90s, early 2000s and stuff watched and thought there was other people who acted that way. But this is what I feel about the slashers, is very, very vanilla with a wee bit of blood, and then they're trying to push it as this, and then they're trying to push other things, and it gets lost in translation. A lot of slasher movies these days, they're not like the slasher movies of the 70s and 80s, put it that way. Even the 90s with Scream, when it was rebooted by Wes Craven. And we're still going down a supernatural route, it seems, through the new year. What was your favourite movies of 2024? For me, Late Night with the Devil, Abigail, Speak No Evil, The Substance was my very, very favourite movie, and it wasn't a surprise it was going to be good because the poster sold me anyway, and how violent it was. And I absolutely loved The First Omen, and I really, really like Maxine. 2025, we've already seen, we have reboots, reimaginings, and also the dreaded universe reboot with sequels from old universes and stories being revamped for the 21st century, or what I like to call it, flogging an already dead horse. And by this I mean the Scream franchise. We didn't need any more, and rebooting without all the OG cast and trying to go down a storyline with plot holes as big as Uranus in the first place, creating so many holes in the original story that the story makes no sense. This happens a lot when other writers come in and thinking they won't fuck with it, but they do, and then it becomes a shitstorm. And well, how many times can we see killers taking it upon themselves to take down the mask and slay the people they feel shouldn't exist for their own selfish reasons? And some of the acting is terrible to the point you wish for them all to die and put the audience out of their misery and just fuck the hell off the screen, and it's the end. Just me. If not, then enjoy. Movies coming out this year. For 2025, we have 28 years later, which again, I have a problem with that. It should have been 28 seconds, 28 minutes, 28 hours, 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 months, 28 years. Could have get 7 movies out of this, but they didn't. They fucked about and it made no sense. So they've got that, and I hate Cillian Murphy. I really fucking do. We have The Monkey, which again is a Stephen King movie, Stephen King adaptation. We also have Bambi: The Reckoning, which is part of the Pooniverse, and again, there's 100 of them coming out this year. Wolfman as well. Final Destination. Now, come on, flogging a dead horse here. Again, another Conjuring movie, another Saw movie. Screamboat, which is Steamboat Willie. Megan 2.0. Now, come on, do we really need to see her dancing again? Five Nights at Freddy's, which will be out this time next year, which I'm really fucking excited about because the first movie was really fucking good. Matthew Lillard was a gem as usual. Vicious, it's one of the Fannings is in this. Again, you've got The Strangers Chapter 2, Companion Until Dawn, Thread, and Insidious Tale, which again is a part of the Insidious universe. Fear Street, Prom Queen, and again, did we need another one? No. Sinners, The Bride, again looks like a comedy. Frankenstein, and again, that's a Guillermo del Toro movie, which was actually filmed partially in Scotland, and it has Mia Goth in it. The Woman in the Yard. Sounds very promising. Not The Ritual, again, the facial expression of the actress makes you want to slap her. Dracula, A Love Tale, again, rebooting Dracula again, do we really need it? Wildwood, Whistle, Dust Bunny, sounds like something that you suck up with your hoover. The Gorge, Die My Love, A Corpse in Kensington, and Amsterdam 2. So again, reboots, reimaginings, prequels, sequels, extension of universes, otherworldly universes, creating what once was stories of our youth to how dark and sinister they would actually be, like Peter Pan, Bambi, Pinocchio, and everything in between. I'm looking forward to them. Also, there's a Black Phone 2 as well that's coming out next year, which is basically in a few weeks. You've got Heart Eyes as well. I'm looking forward to 2025. I'm looking forward to maybe the kind of independent movies that we'll see closer to the time that's actually coming out, because there's been a few small independent movies that have gave blockbusters a run for their money, and it doesn't matter about the budget, like I said before, and it doesn't matter about the actors and the big names in it. If you have a good story and a good director who can direct his cast to play the characters and bring them to life and bring the movie to life, then you shouldn't have a problem. So it shouldn't matter if it's $10 or $10 million. But it seems that we've got the same sort of psychological horror, technological horror, viruses type dystopian worlds, supernatural beings, supernatural entities. Psychological always. It seems a few things look like they kind of be based on kind of a fact behind them, and rebooting old classics And it's just like really, really. Am I looking forward to 2025? Like I keep saying, I always look forward to new movies and new concepts, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these, especially the Universe movies. I actually am intrigued to find out how violent they can make original stories be without them being fluffy. While I enjoy Frankenstein, I love Guillermo del Toro, and I feel like his work gets lost in the world that if you don't, again, Guillermo del Toro's done so many good movies. A lot of movies don't really get accepted or picked up or understood because, again, released at the wrong time, or there's just not many people who understand and enjoy his work. I love his the Curiosities series as well. That was really fucking good, and again, not everybody enjoyed it. It was short stories, short, concise stories that actually got to the point quicker than some movies do about the same topics. That they don't even tease the story out. They don't even kind of pad the story out. They just drag it along, and everybody gets pissed off. So I do enjoy a Guillermo del Toro movie, and I'm looking forward to Five Nights at Freddy's. And I will watch Megan 2.0 because I liked Megan, even though who knew an AI was going to go rogue? Yes, an AI going rogue that's there to protect and support a child, and of course it was going to go mental. So there's I will watch the Final Destination, even though Final Destination Bloodlines, and I will be watching the Puniverse, and I will be watching The Monkey, and even Screamboat. But I'll be watching things like The Conjuring and probably most likely binge watching The Conjuring. You know, it's fresh in my mind, the same with the Saw movies as well, Black Phone. Strangers I don't think I'll watch because I just think they're pointless, and I think they've overdone it, to be fair. And it feels like the tables haven't turned and the cycle hasn't changed really at all. We'll just have to see what independent movies actually come out and change that for us. And maybe something will come out that go, you know what, fuck yes. What genre should they be aiming for? Stay away from remakes and reboots and prequels and extending fucking universes that don't need to. There is so many stories out there that you've not even fucking looked. So many people writing things that original concepts, or they could create their own universe. There's so many characters out there, even from like graphic novels and books, that again are still sitting on the shelves and no one's fucking going, that would make a good movie, that story would make a good movie, that would make a good like short movie or a short or something like that. But no, again, we need to change who's around these tables. We need to change the people who are making these decisions and making the wrong decisions. We don't need yes people around the table. We need people who say what if and no. Let's do this, let's go in a different direction. Stop fucking following this cycle because you're flogging a dead horse. Everybody's fucking sick of it. Fucking try something else. Think outside the box. If you can't think outside the box, fucking get someone else that will. That's what I always feel. Have they overdone a topic in subgenre, or have they not scratched the surface of it? Again, I think I just said it. They need to do something else because they are literally spinning and chasing their own tails and regurgitating the same shite and producing the same shite, and we've all had enough because horror gets absolutely obliterated by so many different genres out there in Hollywood, and we've shown them that horror, no matter the budget, can be done right. If we have the right start off and the right tools at the start, then we can accomplish anything and bring something to the table that deserves to be in the top and deserves to be in a blockbuster weekend. Why is it always about action? Why can't we have horror at the box office like we did with Scream? I know you did last summer. And why wait to October? Why wait to the spookier, dark months to bring us it? Why? And I noticed that we had a lot of different horror movies that were spread out throughout the year, and that was good to see. It was good to know that there was at least one horror movie going to be either on a streaming service or at the cinema. And that was good. And it's great to know that people are looking at doing more horror or trying to scare us with a story that doesn't even necessarily have to be horror. Real life is scary enough. I say that plenty on here. So what did you think of 2024? Do you feel that we're flogging a dead horse? Do you feel like 2025 is the year that we're going to show the world that horror deserves to be in the front running? Or do you think we need to think outside the box and maybe take a step back and find what makes us passionate and what is going to make horror as awesome as it once was. Let me know in the comments below. What was your favourite movies? What excited you? What made you happy? And what made you think, holy shit, I was wrong with that movie? Or holy fuck, why did I watch that movie? Please let us know in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about how awesome everything in horror is and how some things are overlooked, and let's be the voice for horror. Let's give Hollywood a shake and tell them that hello, we're fucking still here. Hello, the horror community is here. We're not going anywhere. That was Confessions from the Darkside present Hawtt from the Other Side, or Hawtt from 2024 to 2025. What movies are going to make and shape the year to come? I am Lady Darcy Darkness, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side. If you like content like this, to go to check us out on Confessions from the Dark Side social media platforms, your Twatter, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify, and Buzzsprout. Let us know what you think over on our social media platforms, and let us get chatting about this topic, all the topics, and let's grow our community and spread how awesome the horror community actually is. If you need to reach out to us at any point, then you can email us at confessionsfromthedarkside, all lowercase and all one word, at gmail.com, and you can again talk to us about anything you want in there, and you can also let us know what's annoying you, what makes you happy, and what you're looking forward to. Is there any articles you think I should read? Is there any movies you think that I might like that I have not managed to find, or I have not heard about? Maybe it's something in the future, but you want us to cover it, you want us to have a rant about it. Let us know at confessionsfromthedarkside at gmail.com. And as I said, I'm Lady Darcy Darkness, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side, and I'll see you in the next one later.